in about 20 seconds or so, I'll be gaveling us in, and we'll go from there. Okay, good evening. Welcome to the February 11th, 2026 meeting of the City of Revere Affordable Housing Trust Fund Board. My name is Joe Gravelisi. I serve as the mayor's appointee as chair of the board. We'll begin the meeting by taking attendance. We have members present both in person and on Zoom. So if I call you and you're on Zoom, just unmute yourself and speak for the public viewers. So I'm present. Matt Wolfer.
Present.
Anayo Oswaki.
Present.
Lori Manzo, I do not see. Deb Frank, I do not see. Layla Pietri.
Present.
And Dean Harris.
Present.
Great. So I see, I note the presence of a quorum. We have 5 members present, so we are able to proceed with official business. If anyone else joins during the meeting, I'll note that on the attendance. So Anayo, first of all, we hope that you're doing better. I know that you're joining us remotely. You know, you can either share or not share for the record that you're laid up a little bit, but we appreciate you making the effort to join us, and we'll start with you
Thanks a lot.
on the budget update. Mm-hmm.
Well, I would love to be there in person with you all, but I had a little bit of a knee injury and operation, so it kind of keeps me from moving. Hopefully next time we have next meeting, I should be in person. But getting to the actual budget itself, I can provide an update, and I'm going to read it as I was given. The current balance for the Affordable Housing Trust Committee is $882,571.77. This balance is reflective of the approximately $167,000 that is encumbered for the next 2 payments to the neighborhood developers. Additionally, interest posted for this period is $3,389.64. During this period, a payment of $10,000 was made towards a first-time home buyer down payment program. Thank you. This is again provided by Suta Newton from the budget office in Revere.
Thank you for that, and some added context. I anticipate we'll be having another down payment assistance check coming out, which is good news. It's a good thing to spend money on that someone qualified for it and is receiving it, so that's great. And we also anticipate receiving, so I know I mentioned the Revere Housing Coalition was looking into making a donation to us in support of closing costs and other things that can support folks in the purchase of affordable units. And we anticipate receiving that donation in the coming weeks of about, I believe, $13,000. So that'll be added to the ledger. So really appreciate the folks that support us in that way, and thank you very much. Moving on to topics from the fundraising subcommittee, a little bit from Anayo and a little bit from me. With Anayo, I know that you have very good reason why we haven't gathered as a subcommittee, but obviously if you want to talk a little bit about your availability in the coming weeks, maybe we can send around a poll and pick a time for you to
Sure.
lead the meeting. Yep.
Sure. Yeah, again, really absolute apologies for the delay of this. I know this is something that is important for us. Years ago, we saw it last year, and we hope to accomplish. This medical issue that I've had came out of kind of nowhere, so it's delayed me. However, moving forward, again, I should be back in the fold in about 3 weeks or so. Ideally, we can have a meeting before that. The purposes of the meeting were a couple. One, we would sort of update folks as to summarize the previous meeting we had with our community partners. Then the next part of the meeting would be to propose some items that we could write, or sort of an effort to craft a fundraising proposal to the again, our partners. And so that was kind of the goal for it. I will send out, barring any sort of weird medical issue, I will send out a schedule for proposed meetings by Friday.
Oh, sorry. Thank you for that. So we look forward to that and joining that conversation. The other update I'll add from the sort of fundraising side and on that topic is I don't have any major updates to share on the concept we discussed last time about expanding the senior repairs program. Conversations are ongoing, but I don't have a concrete update to share yet. So the update is no update other than that we continue to work on it and plug away, and look forward to involving everyone once we're able to move that process forward. I wish I could say more, but that's kind of where we sit at this time. Moving on to, this should be a really quick item, the ADU loan program. I know we looked through a draft of the application last month. We've developed, I think, a more secure version of the application that also is responsive to some of the feedback that everyone made at our last meeting. I sent it around to everybody, but I'm just gonna share my screen and post it if I can do that. There we go. All right. Bear with me. Riveting television here. Okay. Monitoring options. Okay. Can everyone see the ADU form here, or the piece of it? I get a thumbs up from folks in the, yep.
Yeah, you can see
Okay,
it in the Zoom.
Terrific. Okay, so this is responsive to some of the things that folks brought up, first of all. And secondly, instead of being on Google Forms, it's through our Laserfiche system, which we used for the senior citizen repairs program. It's more secure and is an internal system that we have for the city. So this is basically just about ready to go live, I think, but I wanted to give everyone one last chance to look it over before we go public. Anayo made a really good point of making sure that we reference that this is for the city of Revere. I know it sounds silly, but like it's one of those things I'm glad you mentioned. So we have the city seal on it and, you know, kind of emphasizing that and that it's for housing in Revere. I don't think any of this phrasing changed from what we discussed at the last meeting, sort of what the terms are, what the repayment is. Other than that, we kind of put it clearly on its own page right at the front. I think it looks cleaner this way than it did on the other version, so thank you for the feedback on that. So for the applicant information, one nice thing about this as well is that people can upload documents. I don't think, yeah, here we go. You can see here where you can upload files. So it shows the proof of property ownership, proof of residency, like utility bill, driver's license, et cetera. And then a description of the project, so, you know, what type of ADU it is, a description of the scope, and then there's an opportunity here to upload documents, quotes, renderings, et cetera. You know, our hope and expectation would be that folks will have already gone to site plan review to kind of start the process, but if not, they can still apply anyway. We'll tell them their first step, you know, is to go to site plan review, because obviously you need to have all of your permits in place in order to be eligible for this program. But if all they're sending us is kind of a concept without any kind of renderings or information from site plan review, it's not a super advantageous application, but I can at least respond to them and say, look, here's your first step. You know, go to site plan review, get guidance on what you need to do, talk to a contractor, get quotes, get renderings, and then come back. So we don't want people to feel confused, but we also, I think that this is actually a way to help them be less confused, you know, or if they do think they can just kind of put in this application, we have this drop box to upload what you have, and if you don't have it, that's kind of our first red flag that we should tell people to go to site plan. This is the affordability agreement, which we've previously discussed. I don't think any of this language has changed. The only edit that we're gonna make, I flagged this with IT earlier. See where it says, you know, before you may rent out the unit, it kind of breaks off to the TH and goes to E. We're gonna fix that, and same thing on the next paragraph. We're gonna try to like either squeeze the font or deal with the size of the box or something to prevent that from happening. So we're gonna change that, but nothing material. And then certification and signature. So a digital signature for the owner, and then a second owner if applicable. So this really shouldn't be anything surprising, but if anyone wants me to go back and look at any piece of it, if there's anything that stands out to you or you're concerned about or still think need edits, let me know. Anything? Anyone? Well, if not, I'd love to make a motion that we accept this in its current form, knowing that I'm going to make those little format tweaks, and we look to publish this next week, next Wednesday would be my goal. Get it in the news, or excuse me, next Thursday We'll have it publicized in the newspaper, the Revere Journal, next Wednesday that it's going live, and have it go live the next day. So, do I have a second for that? Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Yeah, I checked before and for me it's okay. I read it, the
What's that?
application. I read the application before and for me it's good. I don't know the others' opinion to that.
Terrific.
For me it's a good application.
Thank you. Any objection to launching this next week? And just to note, we will work to get this translated into the 4 predominant languages that are spoken in Revere, and then we'll have the option through the Community Liaisons Program where if someone speaks an additional language beyond that, we'll be able to provide support for them. But it's only going to be published in the 4, English, Spanish, Arabic, Portuguese, but we'll be able to provide translation services as needed to anyone who needs it for other languages, the same way we do any other city document. So with that, we'll move to get this up and online. Thank you for your patience. I know this has been a long time coming, but excited to get this up, and I think this will be helpful. And I think it's timely, the spring sort of construction season. I know it doesn't feel like it because of all the snow that's still on the ground, but it's just around the corner, and we're going to see an uptick of construction activity. So good timing for this. Moving on, I did submit for everyone. We had an application come in under our open call for applications, which came in from North Suffolk Community Services for their supportive housing development on Hitchborn Street. I hope everyone had a chance to review the documents. So we did state on the application that this round kind of goes through next month. So technically speaking, we can, table this, continue to think about it, see if we get other applications in the next month. We're under no obligation to award funds. We can also award the maximum. We can do, whatever folks think is best. And it's within our discretion and our purview to, respond to things as they come or to wait and review everything at the end. So that being said, for the last couple of cycles, I've sent around this application that we received. I think personally, my position on it, I think North Suffolk does tremendous work in the community. Our department's been to Hitchborn Street and seen the project they opened there, and it's terrific, and they're wonderful neighbors, and we're glad we're in the community. My concern and my reason why I'm going to suggest, personally, not voting in favor of this, and we can table it for further discussion if people like, is that I just don't think we should set the precedent of funding, kind of backfill funding projects that are already open. This is already open. It has its certificate of occupancy. They've received the financing they need, to get the project complete. Obviously, I know as a nonprofit, it would help to offset, some of the debt they took out as part of it. But ultimately, there's other projects and priorities that have unmet funding needs, and I would rather reserve, and hold the funds that we have for those. So that's my opinion on it. It's not to say that this isn't incredibly worthy, and a great organization, and this deeply affordable housing, is something that we're grateful to have in the community. I'm just not comfortable setting a precedent of kind of voting to go backwards to fund something that's already open. And, because we also don't fund like ongoing operations for affordable housing nonprofits, for instance. We could, I guess, we could kind of do it that way, but I would rather kind of stick to what we've been doing, which is amplify other funding sources and fill in gaps. So that's my position. I feel badly because it's a great project, but that's just my thoughts on it. So with that, I'll yield and see if other folks have thoughts as well.
Well, I'll agree with you. And if the response is that, by awarding North Suffolk this money that would unlock future development, then my response would be then when the future developments happen and those opportunities are, then they can come in front of us at that point in time and seek the funding for those projects at that time. I agree with not back funding.
Any other comments on this? And so I will say, go ahead.
Yeah, one thing I was going to add, same page. I feel like the idea of this program is we really want to be funding projects that look like this, like this reminds me of the Ocean Ave project and the Salem Street project. It kind of looks and smells like an opportunity where we can put a limited amount of capital to work and get a lot of affordable units out of it, but it doesn't meet the core criteria that we're solving for of people who really need that funding gap to get a project done. That's not the case with this one. But also think it brings up, I don't know, maybe it's worth thinking about timelines on when we're approving applications, because the other thing is, even if this, was a project that was still in the planning phase and we were, filling that funding gap to get it done, it's hard to make a decision without the context of what the other opportunities are out there. So I don't know that we need to do anything immediate on that, but like, as opposed to trying to think about whether these projects make sense when they come in, like reviewing all the projects on the docket on a regular basis, if that's quarterly, whatever that is, might also help us make better decisions.
Yeah, I agree with that, and I think that's something that maybe we can clarify when we republish the next open call, is sort of like if we're gonna judge them on a rolling basis, or if it's specifically gonna be at that time. I think that I'm open if folks want to, because our application round that went out says we're accepting applications through the March meeting. If folks want to pause on making a final decision and just look at and vote on kind of everything that comes in, if anything else comes in by next month, we can do that. I will say, I'm obviously happy to have North Suffolk come back to answer questions. I think that they already did come and answer questions about this project, and I don't want to, take their time. If it seems like there's general kind of agreement on, like, from a principle standpoint where we sit on this, I think if from a process standpoint, we'd rather not vote and would rather kind of wait till that round is over. I'm okay with that too. Whatever the feelings of the board are. I think that my inclination would be to reject this now so we can let them know. But also make sure that they know that we gladly, hope to partner with them and work with them on future projects should one come up. So, any other comments, thoughts, feedback? Okay, well, with that, I'll make a motion, if there's a second, to reject this motion, reject this request for funding, and direct myself as chair to reach out to the applicant, let them know the reasons why, which we've stated, around sort of the completion of the project already, and communicate, our willingness to entertain future applications for future projects. So with that, I'd make that motion to decline this. Do we have a second? Second. Okay. All in favor, either say aye if present, or maybe put your hand up on Zoom. Aye.
In favor of rejecting, right?
In favor of, sorry, let me clarify.
Yeah, just-
In favor of declining the application for
Okay.
funding, yeah. So,
Sorry, I'm a stickler for length.
no, I appreciate that, and if there is any objection, if there is objection, we can do a formal roll call as well.
No,
But,
I was just unclear what
No,
the
no,
length.
I-
but yeah.
Completely. So with that, do we have unanimous consent for rejection of this application?
Yes.
Yes. So any
Yes.
opposition to any opposition to declining? Okay, seeing none. Okay, it's so moved. And so I'll make that communication, and also further, I'll work to clarify the way we phrase when and how we review these, to make sure that there's no confusion about that moving forward. Okay? So another item I wanted to get to, I don't have a particular ask for us on this yet, but I think I might. As folks may know, if you're following the news, there's been some changes to federal homelessness policies. They haven't exactly been implemented yet, but they've started to kind of make the process. The upshot of it is the HUD and federal programs that administer homelessness programs have put less of an emphasis on permanent supportive housing and more of an emphasis on transitional housing. So for those that aren't maybe as versed in the language, permanent supportive housing is for extremely low-income families that have been considered chronically homeless. So have had like multiple spells of homelessness or homeless for an extended period of time. And with some, extenuating circumstance, beyond just income, so some sort of disability, physical disability, substance use, behavioral health, that's contributed to the homelessness. And so if you fall into that category, you may become eligible for permanent supportive housing. Permanent supportive housing is administered through numerous agencies, including nonprofits in our area. It exists both for individuals and for families, and something that's pertinent is I know that, through a nonprofit provider in the area, there's 25 families, with children in the Revere Public Schools that have received permanent supportive housing. We don't know exactly how this is gonna change, but there's a fair expectation that, some of those families might lose access to this housing. And a policy response or thinking about what we might be able to do as a trust is something that I think we'll want to think about. I think another change as well is that there may be some reclassifications of what counts towards qualifying for permanent supportive housing. So it may only apply, to, again, this is all sort of up in the air, but there's talk around limiting it to like a physical disability. So if we have families where the head of household or the adult in the household is has a behavioral health issue or a substance use issue or things of that nature, they may be at risk of losing supportive housing. As we know, what we have to do from a budget standpoint is pretty limited, so we can't be a permanent supportive housing provider. But if there's ways that we can work with providers to, create some sort of support for any families that lose funding because of federal cuts to homelessness support, especially if they're kids in the Revere Public Schools, I would want to kind of take special consideration to try to see what we can do to fill in gaps there. I don't have anything remotely that looks like a proposal for it yet, because we also don't really know what it looks like. But I've been in the process of working with counterparts in the community development department in different cities and towns around Revere, Malden, Everett, et cetera, and talking through some of these issues, and I hope to come back to the board with thoughts. But that's something that's on my mind. I think if we can try to prevent families with kids in Revere Public Schools from losing housing, whether it be a funding issue or just kind of advocacy and, where, Dean, to the extent what resources might exist and things like that, we should just try to insert ourselves in that. So, not a super specific comment, but just wanted to put that out there. Dean, I don't know if you have further knowledge. I know it's not directly public housing, but I know that you're really well versed in these federal issues, so.
Well, I would say that initially what they should do is just get on those emergency lists when you become, there's no real emergency housing or emergency application on the HUD side of things, but the state of Massachusetts, so the Commonwealth, has emergency housing, and their first criteria is homelessness through no fault of their own. So once that comes into play, they get right on the lists from EOHLC, which is the CHAMP system, and they get, hopefully towards the top of the list. The issue is there's just not a lot of vacancies out there if you're talking about so many families in Revere that have it. I mean, the Housing Authority at a certain time, we have 900 units, and, we're probably, 10 to 20 units vacant at a time. It's not going to take care of, we're not built like a shelter to take everybody in at the same time, the only other thing is, though, while the Revere people, when you're in an emergency, that emergency automatically goes statewide. And so just because they're a Revere resident right now, there may not be a place in Revere available, but there may be a place in another city too. But I'm assuming that other cities are going to have the same issues with the programs, and it's not just going to be a Revere problem with families that are losing their funding. It's going to be statewide throughout.
Yep, nope, that's exactly right. And part of the challenge, is that I think that where possible, and it might not be possible. So I know that there's all different models for permanent supportive housing, some of which involve like congregate housing that's owned or operated by a nonprofit, and some of which is like scattered site. So it means that they're in a regular apartment, they could be in any apartment or home in Revere or anywhere, but they receive supportive services from a nonprofit. They come and, provide like behavioral health assistance or job assistance or other support that folks might need. I think that, from my standpoint is if folks are in that second, and again, I don't know, we don't know the numbers, I don't know who but if we have folks in that second situation where like they might still have access to the services, but might need help with, you know, rent in that unit, like if there's support that's pulled to keep folks stabilized, I think that's something that we should think about if it's something that's possible. I don't know yet. Like I said, there's more unknown than known at this point, but, you know, I do want to be mindful of that, especially given, you know, from a city standpoint, you know, if homeless students remain in the school system and the city becomes responsible for transportation costs, obviously, you know, it's challenging both for the municipality and for the family when kids get, you know, pulled out of the school system that they're in, even if they're able to get emergency housing, which obviously is better than not having that, but kind of what we can do. So I know that's a little bit of all over the place, but I just wanted to put this on our radar so that way if we come with an idea or a concept, it's not a total surprise. It's something that, you know, I want to keep our eyes on. So any questions or thoughts? Seeing none, so we'll kind of place that on file for now. Be on the lookout. I'm going to try to get some experts in this space to provide some information to us. Maybe appear at our next meeting and just talk through like what the situation is and what's facing families that are experiencing homelessness in Revere specifically. So stay tuned for that. So we now move into other or late items. I have a couple quick updates to share, but before then, does anyone else have any additional items, late items, public items for any public? Okay. If not, so quickly, no major updates on, you know, we're still waiting to pay out the last senior repairs project, but, you know, that continues to kind of be a pace. As I mentioned, we had another person qualify for the down payment assistance program, so that's great. That check should be going out in the next week or so. We also have, as many of you may be aware, we're part of the North Suburban Consortium Down Payment Assistance Program. And the great news is it looks like for the first time in years, they're going to pay out all of the slots they had for down payment assistance. They're not all to Revere residents because it can be anyone, you know, in any of those communities. But my understanding is that, and Deb would know, I think probably many years they don't give out all the money that they have. So the fact that they have means we're doing a better job of getting the word out. You know, people are learning about it, they're applying for it. And this is the first time I've ever had to tell someone who applied for that program that they might not get it because it looks like all the money's been awarded. So bad news in that sense, but good news in the sense that we're getting the money out the door, you know, supporting families and helping people become first-time home buyers. So, you know, we're really happy to see that. Any questions on the down payment assistance programs? The other thing I would add is that a couple things. I continue to work with our state delegation on getting further support for this program and the budget again for this year from the state. You know, no guarantees. I know it's a tough budget year for everybody, city, state, federal. So, you know, what comes will come, but that's something that remains a priority for us to receive, you know, an additional infusion of funding and support for down payment assistance. And, you know, Deb, I know that we've been in touch with your team and with Chelsea about co-hosting this event that's coming up in Chelsea. I don't know if you want to talk briefly about it, but I'll be sending out some press materials around this shortly.
Yeah, absolutely. So we have a home buyer fair scheduled for the 28th of this month. It's from 10 to 2. It's being held at the Clark Middle School in Chelsea. We are going to have, I'm assuming someone from the city of Chelsea will be there representing this program. And then someone from the city of Revere, I'm sorry, from South Chelsea, with I believe, so Revere will be there. We're going to have Mass Housing there, Mass Housing Partnership. There'll be a couple of real estate agents, one that's specifically from Chelsea, one from Revere, and a number of other vendors will be there. I'm going to focus my presentation on loan programs and grants and down payment assistance and things like that. You know, we might have some information on credit repair and whatnot, but the goal being to get the word out about all of these different programs so that we could try to help out the people in Chelsea and Revere.
Thank you for that. So I'll be there on the 28th representing Revere, and we'll get the information around to board members if you want to be present, you know, to to see it? Or to
I
answer
believe
questions?
I believe the marketing piece is just about finalized. It's my understanding they were just waiting for the Revere's city seal, if we could use it, along with Chelsea's.
Yep, so I'll be getting that over ASAP. And so, yeah, so if anyone wants to be present at that from a member standpoint, great. And then obviously for public, we'll publish this in the meeting notes. We'll get it up, get the word out on social media, et cetera, and try to get a good turnout for this. So thank you, Deb, and thank you, Metro
You're
Credit
welcome.
Union, for your efforts on this front. Any questions about that? Okay. Well, seeing none, that's the last item on our agenda. So we once again had a very tidy half hour. Do I have a motion to adjourn? All right. Any objection? Seeing none? All right. Thank you, everyone. All right. Thanks to those who joined us virtually. Oh, we lost you. Thanks, everyone. For joining us. And Anaya will get better.